Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I apologize if my voice is a little hoarse. It'll probably crack several times through this, but I just recorded a 2-hour-long podcast with Slicey Dicey, and then I have shot 1, 2, 3 other videos since I stopped, and I got to get my first impressions done on this because it's time, so we're powering through tonight. But this is the WE Banter, and it is my first experience with one. If you missed the unboxing, I'm kind of late to this knife, admittedly, and there's a couple of reasons for that. I guess if I were to try to really encapsulate it, it would be when this knife came out. As much as I've always liked Ben Peterson, the designer of this knife, hashtag what is up guys, you know Ben from Blade HQ videos. He's no longer with Blade HQ, but that's how everyone in the knife community knows him, at least at first. Now he's his own thing. But anyways, even though I've been a kind of a fan of his for a while, and I've respected him and liked the videos he was doing when he was at Blade HQ, and I think he's a seemingly very nice guy, when these came out, it just didn't really speak to me so much. And I was hearing a lot of good things about him. People were saying I should check one out, and I just yeah, I'll get to it. And I've gotten to it. Part of me wishes I had done it sooner because so far, spoiler alert, I'm really liking this knife. But that's also kind of the way it is. There are a lot more knives, realistically, than I can get to all at once. And I'm late, but so be it. This kind of came in an interesting way, too. What finally kind of kicked me in the butt was that recently Ben reached out because he was working with Joseph Vero and Raven the Pirate on a collaboration project, and they basically put together, Raven the Pirate had shot a photo of the Vero Impulse Mini, and he had disassembled it and created kind of like a blown up, almost looked like a blueprint of the knife using the actual knife itself disassembled, and they created this poster based on that image of Joseph's knife and Ben Peterson of Knafs, his knife company now. They make posters and disassembly mats and strops and all kinds of stuff. But because they make posters, Ben kind of put together this project and brought everyone together. And they sent me one of the prototype prints of that poster to show off and build awareness for the launch, I guess. But it was just really cool. So Ben reached out, messaged me. I was like, dude, sweet, it's Ben, cool dude. And got to talk to him a little bit. Talked to him about coming on the podcast, which we'll be doing soon. And then after having that conversation, Ben started carrying these on his site on Knafs, which I'll link down below. And so I love to have the opportunity to buy a knife as directly from the maker or the designer of it as I can. I get a kick out of that. I think it's cooler to support them than to support the retailer. And I love supporting retailers. There's a list of retailers that I genuinely adore. River's Edge Cutlery and Cutlery Shop and Knife Joy. And there are retailers that I like to purchase from. But buying straight from a designer or a maker just feels different to me, and I dig that. So when Ben started selling these on his site, I jumped on it. And it was cool too. If you watch the unboxing, you'll have seen that there's a number of things that come with this knife if you purchase it on Knafs instead of through a retailer. So it came with a shop rag that's branded with the WIUG, what is up guys, logo. There were some stickers. There's a little keychain strop and some stropping compound. And I feel like I'm probably forgetting something. There's stickers. I don't know. But then on top of that, you have the option to, you can put it in the notes if you want it to be done, to have Ben kind of sign your knife. I don't know how well this will show up, but he literally takes a little engraver to it and signs his name on it. So this one says, Ben, he signed my knife. It's pretty rad, in my opinion, that he does that. Let's see if I can get the light to catch it. Right there. Look at that. So it's just cool that I got his knife kind of through him as directly as I can. It's just he and his wife Athena there at Knafs who are handling all that, and they just ship on Wednesdays. They're very small business, and it just felt cooler to get it from them, to have it be signed by him, and to get the extra swag. And it cost a few bucks more, but you get more out of it, and I don't know, I liked that. So I'm late, but I'm here. I've got the knife, and yeah, so let's talk first impressions. I'm now deep in, and we haven't gotten into the weeds yet. First impressions on this knife are good. This knife for me, size-wise, it's a secondary. So I've carried this knife twice now, and each time I've carried it as a secondary. Back left pocket is typically where you'll find my secondary knife, and that's where it's been both times. And it's very comfortable in that spot. This profile and weight and size, like dimensionally, this knife is really pleasant to carry. And so far what I've noticed about has been mostly that. It's very thin. Not the thinnest knife I've ever felt, but it's on the thinner end. It's a nice thin profile. It's G10 with nested liners. The liners themselves, or I guess, is there a liner on both sides? Am I crazy? I thought there was. That's just a liner on one side. So the liner lock is the liner. The show side is just a slab of G10. Wild. I thought that for some reason had a nested liner in it. I'm a crazy person. Anyway, so G10 for the show side, and then we've got nested liner lock over here, and then it's a pretty thin blade stock of S35VN. These studs I'm assuming are titanium because they're anodized this blue color. Got a couple of standoffs, but yeah, it's just thin, compact, and relatively light. Not the most featherweight, super light knife I've ever felt, but I think my favorite thing carry-wise is the pocket clip. If you know me, and you've heard me rant about pocket clips before, this will be no surprise, but my favorite thing about pocket clips is when they come all the way to the butt end of the knife, deep carry. Like loop over style clips that reach all the way to the butt end of the knife are great, because now when this knife is in my pocket, you see a clip, you don't see a knife. That's what I want. I want you to see the clip. That's an inevitable. I don't want you to see the knife. I don't like having a bunch sticking out of my pocket. So I love that. On top of that, it also does my second favorite thing about pocket clips, and this is one that's even less common. It's countersunk down into the G10, and then the screws are countersunk into the tang of the clip. So if you can see under there, come on, it's perfectly flush fit. There's no like, let me think of an example. Yeah, here. Look on my PM2. Spyderco PM2. This is a Lynch clip that's been added, but the way that a clip mounts on a PM2, the tang of the clip sits on top of the G10, and then the screws stick up above the clip. So you can see there's all that stuff sticking up under your clip. That's less ideal than having it be perfectly flush under there. So this clip does all of my favorite things. And pair that with how small it is, how light it is, how much there's not a flipper tab or anything weird sticking off of it. It's just very pleasant to have in pocket. Everything is rounded well, everything is smooth. That's kind of the way it goes. So I love the way this knife carries so far. It's also surprisingly fun to play with for me. I mean, it's a WE, right? So this is a Ben Peterson or a Knafs design. You can see it's got his WIUG, what is up guys, logo there, right? But it's also branded WE. This is a WE knife. This is a WE catalog model. This wasn't like an OEM project where he had them built and WE doesn't put their name on it. This is WE's knife that he designed. It's licensed to WE, right? And as WE knives go, I mean, they're great at setting up an action. Their detents are consistent. Their bearings feel great. It's very, very smooth. It's not super drop shutty, I think mostly because it's small. If this was a big heavy blade, it would absolutely drop shut. But everything about it is slick, and it's stayed totally centered, and I find myself fidgeting with it a lot, which surprises me as well because I'm Mr. Holes are greater than studs. I have stickers and shirts that say it, and that's kind of my joke, like holes are greater than studs. Nah, I mean, I prefer holes to studs for opening methods. What I mean by that is I would rather have a hole in my blade that I can middle finger flick with than have thumb studs where you're supposed to use your thumb to flick, or like this one, oftentimes you can still middle finger flick, but in general I'll take the hole over the stud every single time. These are really great thumb studs though. They're set in the right spot, they're easy to get the right amount of like leverage and torque on to just fling the knife open every single time. And as thumb stud knives go, it's very, very fun for me to play with, and it's very consistent and reliable, and I like it. So that's good too. On top of that, the ergos have surprised me. I thought this would be like a 3.5 finger knife, and really I can get all 4 fingers on here. I wear a medium sized glove, but I fill it out real well. And to me, it's just like this handle is like everything I need and nothing more, nothing less. It is a good sized handle. The knife size in general is a good size. This isn't a knife that you'll catch me carrying as a primary, because I like to have a little more blade length as my primary folder. But for a secondary, this is pretty perfect. One of the things that Ben always wants on his knives as well is to be able to reach up and touch the tip. Reach out and touch the tip with me, everybody, on the count of 3. Just kidding. It feels, for him, like that's a metric that he kind of checks on knives. And I don't do that, but I get it. And I talked about in my unboxing, I made the joke, and he then kind of shared the joke, which I thought was funny. I called it a dad knife, because like for him, he does a lot of like helping his kids with art projects and stuff, like cutting out paper circles and things. And that kind of grip becomes really important for that kind of stuff. And I've got a 6-year-old. Like, I'm doing a lot of things like that, arts and crafts, and then also just like opening kids' toys packaging. And oftentimes you are using funky, weird, different grips when you're doing stuff like that, where you're not just slicing cardboard, So I'm going to stick with that. I think this is kind of a dad knife. This is a knife built by a dad, and it makes sense in like a dad lifestyle. And it just excels in those types of tasks I've found so far. And so I like that. I think it's cool. So I think first impressions wise, we'll probably leave it kind of there. When I go over full review, I'll have carried this knife quite a few more times. I'll have used it quite a bit more. So far, I've cut one apple with it. I've cut a little bit of cardboard. I've opened some packaging, but I haven't done a ton, And so I'd like to do some more with it. I have also cut a little bit of paper, specifically like this, I should say, because I wanted to make sure that it passed the Ben test. It should. It's his knife. But yeah, by the time I'm going to do full review, we'll go over full-on ergos, action, carry, cutting, a little bit more in depth, and I'm sure I'll have some more thoughts about it by then. But on first impressions, I get it. And is there a certain amount with this knife? I think if there's an honest discussion happening where people's affinity for it is because we like Ben. As a community, I think like in general, the community likes Ben because he's a nice guy. He's a cool dude. He's done a lot to like build, but what he did at Blade HQ, I think brought a lot of new people who, when they happened to show up and find a Blade HQ video, he was approachable and created cool content, and he did a lot in terms of like marketing and stuff that brought people into the hobby in a cool way. And so a lot of us, like myself, when I was getting into the hobby, I was watching Blade HQ videos with Ben, and like that was somewhat meaningful. So for it to be his knife does mean something. I think if this knife didn't have Ben Peterson attached to it, it would not be something I'd have even picked up. I wouldn't have. This would not be a knife that I would have picked. I don't think it's classically beautiful or all that like super exciting to look at. But if you know Ben, you know he didn't make it to be those things. He made it to be the knife that he wanted to have in his pocket. And I respect his tastes. And now that I'm feeling the knife that he created, it's like, you know what? He's got a point. This is a pleasant knife to use. It's a pleasant knife to carry. And I think it's like, not every design has to be crazy artistic. Some designs can just work really well. And I think this is a design that kind of does that. And so if I'm being objective and honest, like, yes, I have this knife because it's Ben Peterson attached to it. And I think a large percentage of people who do and who have said so many nice things about it, part of that's been because Ben is attached to it. But I think the two things can be true at once, right? It can also actually be a really good knife and can be worthy of being spoken highly of. And I like it. I think for the price that it's offered at, right around $100, it's a pretty good value. And I think I'm finding that it feels good, works good, and is fun. And so, I mean, it's kind of checking a lot of boxes here. And that's not because of Ben. That's because the design and the execution is actually pretty dang good. So hopefully that makes some sense. Anyways, thanks for checking it out with me, guys. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one.